I'm Liz Caraballo and, from Synchrony. I'm the Diverse Talent Strategy leader, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today, Maria. And I'm so excited to have Maria Smith, Vice President of Payments and Financial Services at Walgreens. Um, Thank you. Thank you for saying yes to this amazing opportunity. And thank
Happy to
you
be
to
here.
Hispanic Executive for hosting our discussion today. It's truly an honor. So I'm going to jump right in because I've got some great questions that I want to ask of you, Maria,
Yes.
and engage in a peer-to-peer executive conversation today of all things related to breakthrough moments in our careers as Latina executives. And I'm sure the conversation is going to take us to lots of different places. So
Yes, let's get
let's
started.
start with your impressive career, right? Maria, I know that as a Latina, it wasn't easy to get to this level. Walk me through your journey of breaking through the ranks to reach the leadership level that you have today, not just with Walgreens, but with some amazing brands such as Disney and Starbucks. By the way, three amazing brands that I am a huge fan of.
Yeah.
So I'm so impressed, and I know others will be impressed. So walk us through that journey.
Well, I think I've been very fortunate in my career, but thank you very much. They're very impressive brands. But so I mean, when I started my career straight out of college, I really didn't know what I was doing as a Latina. To be honest, I didn't have anybody to look up to. I didn't have any like way forward. So I just imagined myself getting out of college and going to apply for a job that was interesting and fun with good companies. And that's kind of how I ended up where I ended up. I took some of the basic skills that I had in accounting, and then I had a finance degree and started going after jobs in spaces I thought I would be accepted. To be honest, I was looking for like retail jobs in the corporate world, thinking that that's the place that I would go. And that's how I started my journey, and then eventually ended up at Disney. But really, so what I've done is basically finance, accounting, financial planning and analysis, which is a totally different function. I've done payments. I've done a lot of payments work, but I've also done like accounting operations and business development and a number of things in the like marketing areas. I've done deals. I've done partnership deals, and it's been an opportunity that was given to me because of hard work. And so really what I would say to you is that how did I break through in these roles? I don't know. But I was taught to work hard and really just to do a good job, and that would be noticed eventually. Then I was lucky enough to have some mentors and sponsors that really then took me under their wing and helped me get to where I was going. So I was fortunate to spend 21 years with Disney, and I learned a lot. I moved around doing different jobs and or projects because it was exciting work. Honestly, I wasn't looking for leadership roles. Again, I wasn't raised to think that way. And then once I got into some of those positions, I found what I really loved and just continued doing that. And
Wow.
then when it came time to choosing another company, Disney is such an iconic brand.
Yes.
And I loved working for the company. It was part of my identity for so long that
Right.
when I went to choose another company, I wanted to be with another one that had the same kind of representation, which Starbucks had, as does Walgreens, a very great consumer brand representation. So I'm lucky to be here, to be honest. And I couldn't tell you exactly how I did it. I'm happy to answer questions when people ask me as a mentor, but I couldn't really tell you how I ended up here, except for hard work.
Yeah, well, and I think success, they often say that success is like where luck and hard work and preparation meet, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah, true.
there is no mistake that the years of service that you put into these companies and your commitment to learning along the way is really what prepared you and hopefully propelled you. But I'm sure that something within you, in terms of your ethic and your character, is really what helped you continue to shine in those opportunities and to be extremely valuable in those brands. So I would say it's probably a little bit more than luck, Maria.
Oh,
So
thank you. I think I did say that I don't like speaking about myself. So, but one thing that you said reminded me that one of the things that did propel me, though, is when people say that you can't do anything. So I think that when I was asked to do things that appeared to be a challenge, it was a little bit of I couldn't do it, so I needed to prove that I could. That was a little
Right.
bit of my personality ethos, which is
Aha, now it's
really,
coming out.
yeah, now
Now it's coming
yeah,
out.
that's a little bit of why I think I ended up doing many of the things that I had done. I was offered an opportunity to do it, thinking it was a challenge and that maybe it wasn't common for me to do, that I should do it because I was challenged to do it.
I love it. And you rose to the occasion.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
let's talk about from an executive level. When was that moment in your life or career when you realized that becoming an executive was the path that you wanted to take? And you touched on this a little bit in terms of kind of how these opportunities have played out for you. But for example, like I remember when I thought I was ready to be an
Uh-huh.
executive versus when I was really, truly ready. And by the way, there were a few years in between when I thought I was versus
Yeah,
when I really was.
yeah.
And so I'm interested to hear about your story in terms of like when did you know for sure that you wanted to be an executive? Were there any processes or tools or techniques? You mentioned mentorship and sponsorship already, which I'm assuming is going to be part of your journey as it is for
Yeah,
so many of us, especially those of us who don't have family and parents who could pave the way for us, right?
right,
As
right.
Latinas and Latinos, we kind of figure this out sometimes the hard way.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in hearing about your journey to executive.
Yeah, so that was interesting when you said the moment you thought you were ready when you were actually ready. For me, it was the moment that I allowed myself to dream that I could do something, and rise to the executive branches of, I think, it was Disney. I remember the moment sitting with my then spouse talking about what would it mean for our family if I really did propel myself forward, right? Wish to be something beyond a manager level. So that was the first thing, right? It was the moment that I saw the breadth of Disney and the company that it was. And again, I never allowed myself to dream because no one had showed me that that was possible. I mean, here I am, a young immigrant, and I am an immigrant, and a first generation immigrant. That came to this country when I was 3. Who am I to say that I could be a leader at Disney? So it was that moment that I said, okay, I really want to dream it. And then I had the conversation with my then spouse to say, what would it take to do it? And what was really interesting was then telling my mom or trying to educate my family about how to do it. Because, I came from a large family of 13. I'm number 13. So in order to allow myself to do that, I had to really explain what it meant to be an executive or to have a more meaningful job with them, right? Especially when I had young children.
Right.
She always questioned why I wasn't home by 5 every day, or why my schedule was so grueling. And it was really that moment that I said, this is what I want to do, and these are the things I have to do, and I need the help from my mother at the time and my spouse to get it done. So I think one of the other things that was important at that time for me was being vulnerable to ask for help. So I didn't know how to get there. I knew I wanted to do it, and I knew that I needed to rise to certain levels. But of course, I didn't aspire to be a certain level. I just aspired to do a good job. But when I didn't know what to do, back to the mentors and sponsors, I allowed myself the opportunity to say, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me?
Hmm.
And that actually gave me, a big step up, to be honest, because I didn't
Wow.
have it in my family.
And I love this conversation and us being vulnerable with each other. So I'd love to share that the time that I thought I was ready,
Yeah.
ironically coincides with the year that I got divorced.
Oh,
And so the universe, must have known that it wasn't the right time for me, both professionally and personally.
yeah.
I went through the divorce, continued to work really hard, and I had the dream. So I really did
Mhm.
have the dream. I just didn't realize that everything has to align, timing,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
role, right opportunity, right person. So I didn't get it until a few years later after the divorce as a single mom, knowing that I
Wow.
needed, right, a lot of support, but I
Yeah.
had the support of my now ex-husband,
Uh-huh.
in helping to care for the kids and to balance all of those things that you talked about, right? So
Yeah.
very similar challenges and journey. But once I got to that level, I knew that I was
Yeah.
ready. I knew that I was more than ready, and coupled with the dream, continue
Yeah.
to propel and push myself. And now my sons are, graduated from college and independent and doing their, living their best lives. So I'm
Yeah.
really, really proud. I'm proud of, the journey because it wasn't
Yeah.
easy as
Yeah.
we talked about in that first question. It's not like
Good.
some people perceive it. It's like, oh, wow, of course, Maria's going to be
Yeah.
executive. Look at the package, but it's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot
It's
of
true.
balance, and it's a lot to really keep all those important balls in the air.
Yeah, exactly. And can I say, like, congratulations to you, right?
Yeah,
Because I think that, when the opportunity is there, that we, rise to the occasion. I really do feel that. And part of it is our upbringing. I don't know about you, but I was brought up to be tough and to do what I
mhm,
needed to do and get
that's
stuff
right.
done. And sometimes that didn't help very much because, I'm very independent. That helped me be successful, in my executive world, but not sometimes in my personal life. But good for you for doing
Yeah,
that. And
thank
doesn't
you.
it feel great to say that with all that and what you've done, that your children are, doing
Yes,
well and thriving? Because I've got two daughters, you've got two sons. I have two
mhm,
daughters that are also thriving, and I'm
that's
so
amazing.
proud of them. And my whole goal in actually work, not even achieving executive status, was that they had a better life than I did.
That's
At the
right.
end of the day, it wasn't about the money or the title or what I did or what I achieved, is that my children would have a better life than I did.
That's right.
And I'm proud to say that, I've succeeded in giving them, at least to their childhood. And now as adult women, they've had opportunities and role models as myself to
That's
do
right.
things that others hadn't done for me and my family. So I'm very proud of that. And you've done
Yes.
that for your sons as well.
Congratulations. I think that's amazing and very similar goal is I wanted to do for them what, couldn't be done for me in terms of paving the path and,
Yeah.
someone in your ear telling you anything is possible as long as
Yeah.
you're willing to dream big and work
Yeah.
hard for it. So I'm so
Yeah.
inspired. Um, so, speaking of balance and keeping it all together, I know that it's hard, even still, right? We do have adult children, but we still have a lot of demands, right? The higher you go up
Mhm.
in the organization and the deeper you get into your career, the greater the responsibility is. And I do believe that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I
Mhm.
remind myself of that every single day. So as you think about personal and professional and how that all comes together, can you share a little bit about what you do to kind of keep a healthy mindset and well-being at the forefront of your list of priorities? One of the
Yeah.
things that I did
Yeah.
probably now 5 years ago, I had put my health and wellness kind of to the side. I was so
Mhm.
focused on my son, so focused on my career. I wasn't living my best healthy life in terms of
Mhm.
mind, body, and spirit. Exercise had always been important to me, but in terms of the commitment of I'm going to do this 4 days a week, I was up and down. But I recommitted myself to that
Mhm.
5 years ago, and now it's the very first thing I do. So
Mhm.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, that is my time. I'm going to work out. I'm not going to think about work. I'm not going to think about anything or anyone except for getting this routine in. So for me, that was one way. What are
Yeah.
some of the examples that you might have in terms of how you commit yourself to your well-being?
So like you, I do think about my physical health as one important thing. But honestly, what was harder for me early on was to shift my brain from thinking about others, because I was raised as a Latina to think about others first, right? You take care of your parents, you take care of just others. You're just
Mhm.
nurturers. And so with my children being young and when I was married, I was always doing for others. When I finally could focus on myself, as with you, I thought the first thing was physical and mental health. And so, how do I do that for myself and for my children? Again, that's the part that you're still, you know,
It's hard.
me
It's hard
being,
to let it go.
yeah, me being a physically healthy person is also about my children. Yeah, to your point. So I said, okay, what are the things that I want to focus on for myself? And so the physical nature of it, but also enjoyment. So I do a number of things that get me away from my desk, and that de-stressed me from the job, right? And so during the pandemic, it was certain classes, and I left my desk because it could have been like a 24-hour a day job, right, during the pandemic. So I left my desk to take, organized classes, or I had certain commitments of the week that I made for myself, that I would do certain activities. So I am currently still doing those, anywhere from going to the gym to biking. I've been taking sailing lessons this summer. So just doing a lot of interesting things that I think make me a more interesting person, and also allow me that de-stress moment, if you will, and physical activity. So it's a combination of that. But that wasn't enough, because the other thing that I did, and maybe you've done this in your career as well, when we have these type of jobs, it is very demanding, and we put in a lot of time and effort during the week. And when I didn't have my children to pull me away from the office, I was spending more time. And so the weekends, I ended up doing more work. So I just made a conscious effort at a certain point to say, look, I won't work weekends. I mean, sometimes you have to, obviously, and you do. But it was a constant before, where I had a weekend in there, like you get back to work on Sundays, it's just what you do. And so now my personal commitment beyond my physical, wellness, is also not to focus on work during the weekends. Now, if I have to, I do it, and that's great. I will commit to it and I will deliver, but I try not to send emails to my team. I try not to answer emails. Now, occasionally I get emails that are very important that I have to respond to. That is still the job. But that's another thing that I do for myself, because I do feel like pulling away from the stressful job is really important for all of us in terms of balance.
I totally agree. Boundaries are so important.
Yeah, totally.
And so for me, weekends are a boundary. So I got engaged last year, and
congratulations.
Thank you. My now fiance helps to keep me honest and say, okay, it's time to log off and spend some time together. And so it's good to have people, right, who are going to hold you accountable, especially when the kids are gone and you have the empty nest, because I can relate to that now. I'm living in Florida. My kids one is in Atlanta and one is in New Jersey. And so it's easy, right? It's easy to just allow yourself to be so consumed, especially if you love what you do. Like and I'm sure you do. So it's real easy. But you do. Those boundaries are so important. And I think it helps you come back into the office on Monday with a fresh new perspective and outlook, right?
It really does.
For everybody.
It really does. And I think it's a really important, representation to your team also, to say that these things are important, right? And I think that they believe sometimes that the only way, it depends on who their, supervisors were in the past and who their role models were in the past, but sometimes they believe that that is the only way to get to the, successful, careers, is to spend a lot of time in the office. And so it's a really important thing. I know we say it to our teams, but I think we need to demonstrate it as well.
Right. So and resisting that email at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, not responding, because if you respond, right, then others feel like they have to respond.
That's exactly it. That's why, So I would send emails back, and then they would be like waiting for emails from me, over the weekend. And that's not fair either. So you really do have to resist, It's a good thing. That's right. That's right.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Latinx Executive Alliance, which is where you and I got to meet and start to engage in terms of our shared interests and desire to really help advance Latinx talent into executive level roles, which is where the idea of the Latinx Executive Alliance came in. So you were so instrumental in helping us think through the need and the gap and what we could as organizations do about it. And so the Latinx Executive Alliance is really focused on just that, really helping to move the needle, bring in thought leaders from various industries and organizations to help address the visible gap in representation at the executive level. I know I don't need to tell you, we represent 19% of the general population, and yet only 4% of Latinos are in a level of decision making, like an executive level, like role for like us. There's just not enough. We need more decision makers, right, that represent the communities and represent the customers that we serve. So I know for all those reasons, why you're committed to the Latinx Executive Alliance, but I'd love to hear in your words the commitment and why it's important to you, why it's important to Walgreens to be a part of this movement.
Sure, sure. And, I kind of mentioned it before about what was important for me was there was no representation for me, right? There was no one that looked like me or that I could talk to about this. And I do feel like, as we know, all of the Latinx executives and people are not the same, right?
Right.
People like to put us into one, but we're not the same. And I feel like I might be a little bit more unique than others. I'm an immigrant that wasn't born here, also coming from Mexican parents that also didn't push education. The fact that I ended up in college was sort of the same thing. They told me I couldn't. So then I said, okay, I will. So I feel like a lot of what I've gone through has been sort of, a bit different than maybe others. And so if I could be a little bit different than all the other representatives on the Latin Executive Council, then I think that it might be helpful to that one unique person that feels like they don't have the confidence or the ability to lean into being executive, right? I allowed myself the ability to wish for it, to dream about it, but no one gave it to me. So if I, as an individual as I am, as awkward as I can be, however I have achieved the career that I have, and however I was driven, if I look like someone that they say, look, if she can do it, I can do it. But I really thought that was really important. That's why I participate in it. In terms of like Walgreens, I'm very impressed with the culture and just the importance that they've put on diversity, and inclusivity. It's really important to the company that we represent in our support center, in all of our leadership roles, the communities we serve, because we serve so many different communities. And I think that's been a big piece of why I joined Walgreens. It was a good brand doing good things for the company, but it's also very important that we represent the communities that we serve. And so, I'm part of that. There's a lot of Latin communities that Walgreens, empowers. And so, I thought that was pretty important.
Well, thank you for joining us on this journey, and you serve as one of our board of advisors, and we'll continue to evolve and iterate and offer the key fundamentals that we know were important to our careers: mentoring, sponsorship, thought leadership, access to resources. And what I think is most important is the role model, right?
Yeah.
You can't believe what you can't see.
Right.
And so
Right.
if Maria Smith isn't at Walgreens or if Liz Caraballo isn't at Synchrony, why should others believe that it's possible? And so I'm so thankful that you're on this journey with us.
Yeah.
So again, we're both extremely fortunate to work for companies like Walgreens and Synchrony that are deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So much so in terms of Synchrony's commitment is that my position didn't exist over a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And it's such a unique position because it's the bridge between our diversity office, where we focus on looking at the data that tells us where are we lacking in the representation that we want to see at our company. And then I bridge over to the talent team, right? And I get to look at every milestone of the talent journey from the view of diverse talent.
Yeah.
Where are we going to find the talent that we need? When we find them, how are we going to welcome them and onboard them? How are we going to continue to invest in them and develop them, and all the way through retention? And you talk a little bit about, Walgreens' commitment to this journey as well, so that as we represent our companies in this conversation and the brands, that we can share a little bit about what is best in class in terms of this commitment. It's one thing to say we're champions of diversity, and another to put positions like mine in place, positions of ERG leaders, to commit resources and leadership to ERGs that are doing great work in our companies on the topic of diversity, because it cannot just be the chief diversity officer's role or one person's mantra. It's everybody from top to bottom, and then everybody in between really living and breathing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, so when I interviewed at Walgreens, I did ask about that, diversity, because to be honest, I had no understanding of the culture of Walgreens until I started my journey, considering a job here. But what I learned is that they did have a strong commitment and had for years to DE&I. They also, Walgreens also has an officer, chief diversity officer. But there's also a number of things that they've done that, and honestly, I've been with a number of companies. You mentioned some that I work with. There's some that you did mention, but that I won't name now, but that have also made commitments to some of these goals. What's different about Walgreens is they've made commitments, put goals out there. For example, they've said they want women in leadership roles and have put a goal into how much they're increasing the number of women in leadership roles. They've said they're going to put people of color in leadership roles and put a goal out there. Then they've come back and reported against it, clear transparency against that. And so that's pretty unique in some areas. I think Synchrony does a really good job of doing that as well, right? But a lot of companies really just say that they want to do it. They don't give their teams the tools to do it. We in our group, when we're interviewing, we do get that diversity of talent to interview the people that have the right skills, but are also very diverse opportunities. And it's a very important part of our hiring process. But not only that, that's really like the leadership role, which is very important, right? If you want to reflect the team that you're going to hire, you need to have the leaders that reflect that. Walgreens has also increased diversity into the board of directors, right? That's been very important, as well as the suppliers. We've demanded it from the suppliers that we work with. So we're changing the system around us, not only with what we're doing at Walgreens, and that's very important. And then finally, we're providing the tools for the team. You mentioned a couple of things too. We've done some unconscious bias training, and that's been prevalent for a number of years, as well as provide those tools that the different groups that the resource groups that provide the different levels of inclusivity, be it, organizations for Hispanics or African Americans or LGBTQ. So that's been provided as well. So I have to say that that's pretty commonplace now, but the devotion that the company has made and the commitment that they have made, and to be transparent, to show have we done what we said we're going to do, I think is kind of unique. And that's what makes me proud to work for Walgreens. Again, it's about representation for the communities that we serve, but it's really also saying that our leadership team has said they're going to do it. They've given goals and said, here's how we're doing against it. We're all, part of our performance goals are all based on it as a leadership team. So that's really important as well. And then we report on it for transparency purposes. So I think that's the best that we can do in that case. I think that's a really good benchmark for other companies to follow.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just talking about it, but it's showing that the conversation continues as you look at the data and the transparency around it, but looking at the board and looking at each of those levels of leadership, and does it really truly reflect the diversity that you're trying to bring into the company, and having honest conversations. I don't know that there's a perfect company doing this, but it's great to be a part of a culture and a leadership team that believes that it's the right thing to do, and that we're going to put forth the energy and resources around it, especially if we're going to win the hearts of talent.
That's right.
I just know my youngest son, who graduated from college earlier this year, was interviewing for roles, and one of his primary questions was around culture and commitment to diversity. As a diverse male, he wanted to know that he was going into a culture that was going to be supportive of him. And I'm so proud of him. He turned down the first job offer he got because he didn't like the answer he got.
Oh, that's really good.
They admittedly said that this was something they were working on, but they didn't really have anything in place. And he went on to the next opportunity.
Well, good for him, right? But that is true though. Young people, and my daughters are in the same situation, but they're also causing the change at their levels.
I love it.
My oldest daughter actually works for Disney at the moment. And so she does have the opportunity to participate in the changes necessary. But what's really important is that we're telling other future leaders, right, what's important and what matters and how to get it done. But these young people going into roles are also demanding that the company already show proof that they're getting there, right? I know culture is a really big question that you ask in interviewing. And one thing I've learned in my career is that you can't ask the people you're interviewing about the culture. You almost have to ask other people around them
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever done that, but I've had a number of people that were interviewing for positions at companies that I'd been to before call me and ask me about culture. And if they didn't know me, they were introduced to me from people on LinkedIn that were part of my network. So now we're in such a social environment, and it's such an easy networking environment that people can ask those folks that work directly in the companies how it really works. They can hear
So true.
everything from the interviewers, but they may not believe it, and they want to hear it from folks that have actually been there.
Yeah, no, I've had candidates say to me, I've done my research.
Ah,
I've tried to turn every stone,
that's
and here's
great.
what I know, or here's what
Yeah,
I've learned about Synchrony, and almost say, hey, it sounds too good to be true. And then
yeah,
once they're here, they realize it's true. Like it's a strong developing culture. There's still always room for change and improvement, but we are the culture we say we are. And so that's that. I get, very proud just talking about that with regard
yeah,
to Synchrony. So, well,
that's
thank you
great.
so much, Maria, for this amazing time that we've shared here together
Oh,
and
well, thank
getting to know
you.
you a little bit better. And hopefully, our listeners, by way of Hispanic Executive, will also get inspired by this conversation and know that no two paths are exactly alike, but that
Mhm.
hard work, perseverance, a little bit of luck sprinkled in there,
Yeah,
right? And great mentors and sponsors,
yes,
great company cultures, all of these things matter and they're so
that's
important
right.
for our overall success. So thank you
That's
again,
right.
and I wish you all the
Yeah.
best.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you, Liz. And thank you for your partnership as well on the My Walgreens credit card. I throw that in
Absolutely.
there as well.
Exactly. This is another great way to show how our partnership can go and extend beyond our
Yeah.
day to day
Yeah,
and
that's right.
really extend itself into very important topics.
Exactly. Another role model for how companies can work well together. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And thank you to Hispanic Executive as well. So so happy to be here.
Thank you.